liquor store, corner, I guess of Woodhill Drive there.
Okay. And you said that there are 16 cameras. Tell us where those cameras are located, not ones, but generally what they capture.
You have 4, I believe there's 4 outside and additional 12 on the inside of the business.
And were you asked to provide video from Danny Scott Liquor from June 21st of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to download the video
Yes,
from
ma'am.
that day? And tell us how you did that. You started to tell us that you could do it at the store or
They
you could do
wanted
it
multiple
remotely.
cameras, which is a lot of video. I did not have the time that particular day to sit there and wait 3 or 4 hours for that video to download to a hard drive on site. So it was downloaded remotely and that to a hard drive and then transferred to the police department's hard drive.
And tell us how that works, what it means to download something remotely.
I basically picked which cameras they were interested in watching at what time frames they wanted. I believe it was a couple of hours of each camera and that for this incident, and that was downloaded over 2 or 3 hours, I believe, for the first time that they came to me for the video. That was downloaded onto a hard drive, and I put that on their hard drive, and that when they came back and it was finished.
And so you can remotely from your own office download exactly what you would download directly from the system.
I can, as long as I have internet access, I can download it to the computer from anywhere.
Okay, and that's what you did when you provided
Yes,
it to the police. There's a timestamp on that video. Tell us what a timestamp is.
Timestamp is kind of similar to what they'll call a watermark on a check. It's how you know if the video has been tampered with. I do not personally know how to do it, and I don't believe GeoVision releases how to do that unless you work for them.
Okay, and so were the timestamps accurate in this
The timestamps were accurate. Within a couple of minutes on any system, it's going to be off. A couple of minutes, a couple of seconds. I even have, from time to time, if it didn't kick into daylight savings time, that it'll be off an hour, depending on how it's programmed to change for daylight savings.
And you said you provided that to the police. Did the police contact you again to provide additional video?
Yes, 2 additional times.
Okay, and do you recall those additional times, what camera angles they asked you for?
I believe the second time they came in, they wanted 2 of the outside cameras as well as the drive-through from the inside that shows who is in the vehicle and who is, you can get a license plate, and depending on what time of day and how dark the windows are tinted, you can see them from the front as well.
Tell us where those cameras are located, the cameras that capture the drive-through.
If you're standing outside the business, there is one that points at the drive-through window is here. It points directly at the back of the car for the license plate. There's another camera in front of that, maybe 15, 20 foot, that looks directly into the car from the other angle. And the drive-through on the inside looks directly into the car so you can see what they have in their hands and that as they're handing you money and you are handing them product.
So 2 are on the exterior and then one's inside?
Correct.
Okay. I think those are all of the questions that I have for you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Your Honor. James Barber.
DVR I checked. Looks like the DVR system showed 6/21/2014 at 1:56 p.m. And of course, I always like to verify that with my phone, which is hooked up to the correct local time to make sure it's the correct time on the system.
Did you do that in this case?
But yes, ma'am. I did.
Tell us again how you did that.
So I checked the time on the DVR system because sometimes it can be off for time zones or just off a couple of minutes as things do. And then I usually verify that with my phone that's with me that is hooked up to the correct
Your
local
cell
time.
phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you did that in this case,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
said, and tell us about that.
Looks like the date of the DVR was 6/21/2014 at 1:56. My iPhone showed 6/21/2014 at 1:52, so about 4 minutes off.
So it was 4 minutes fast. done.
Yes, ma'am, the DVR was 4 minutes fast. Yes, ma'am.
And you said you were able to download that.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you then provide that to the lead detective in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Detective
who was
Wolf.
that?
Franz
Detective.
Wolf. Yes, ma'am.
I think those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Officer Barber, you discussed getting video from the Mariana's Tienda, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Additionally, you canvassed the area around that location looking for more video, right?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
So you went to some apartment buildings, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that includes 2860 Ryan Circle.
I don't have that supplement in front of me, but that sounds right, ma'am. Yes, there was one on Ryan Circle. Correct, ma'am.
Okay. And you actually had to go back again to get that video, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also went to other homes, right?
Yes, I believe it was one on behind Lowe's in that area. Like I said, I don't have that supplement here with me, but yes, ma'am.
Question to approach, Your Honor?
I don't remember if I got anything from Lowe's. I just remember going to Hannah Place behind there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And from those, other than Lowe's, you did obtain video from those places, right?
Most of the places, if I remember correctly.
And you provided that video to Detective Wolf or someone else assigned to the case?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And in collecting those videos, you always check the timestamp against your watch, right?
Yes, ma'am. I like to try to collect it to make sure the times match, date and times.
Because if you have to compare the videos to each other, you want to have a baseline of a standard time from your watch for everyone.
Yeah, just the local time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you did not collect video from the Danny Scott liquor store, right?
Don't know, ma'am.
Okay. You don't remember if you did or not?
No, I apologize. Like I said, I don't have those supplements, but I'd have to look. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you discussed the work that you've done in the Woodhill area near the Austin City Saloon.
Yes, ma'am.
To your recollection, you didn't get any video related to a robbery at a Quality Inn hotel, did you?
I don't know, ma'am. Was that supposed to be a different case, or is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we pull a lot of video on a lot of phones. That's so long ago, I wouldn't remember
Okay.
without reading the supplements. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As far as you recall, you didn't get any video from the Quality Inn?
Not that I remember. I'd have to look it up. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This witness be found excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sir, you may step down and speak now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pardon your witness.
Nafeesa Mulazim.
Nafeesa Mulazim. That black box is a microphone, but it doesn't move. The Commonwealth will ask first, okay?
Please state your name.
Nafeesa Mulazim.
Ms. Mulazim, do you live here in Lexington?
Yes,
Do you know Dewan Mulazim?
yes,
How do you know him?
it's my brother.
Is he older than you or younger than you?
Younger,
He's younger. By how much?
a year,
How old are you?
35.
So that would put him about 34, depending on his birthday?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you all grow up together? Yeah. Okay. Do you know Detective Franz Wolf?
No,
Okay.
I'm not. I can't point him out, I don't know.
Not the name off? Okay. Do you remember back in September of 2014 having a conversation with some police officers about your brother?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember where you were?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you?
Downtown.
The police department?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At some point, did he show you a video from a liquor store and ask if you recognized anybody in that video?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you remember who you said was in that video?
They showed me a video and I told them it was my That was my brother just buying a cigar and then he pulled off.
Okay, and so did they play that video for you?
Mm-hmm.
And it was him in a liquor store?
He bought a cigar and pulled off.
Okay. And you saw, are you talking about Nafeesa Mulazim is who you saw in that video?
My little brother.
Okay. And you said he was buying a cigar
And he pulled off.
and then he pulled off. Okay. Did you also have a conversation with the detective about your brother wearing hats?
You asked me that outside. I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you remember him asking you if you recognized the hat that was in the video?
No.
All right. Do you remember you answering, he wears lots of hats that matches his outfit? He's one of them that matches from head to toe. Every time you see him, he's going to be fresh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I told you that outside that I didn't remember that on that day, but he does stay fresh. I
He
just
does.
told you that.
Okay, he does stay fresh, you
He
know?
does stay fresh.
And does he wear hats that match his outfit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if that's in the conversation that you had with the detective, you think that that'd be correct, that that's what you would have told him if he asked you?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any questions? No. Any questions, Mr. Casey or Mr. Perdue? And this witness be found excused?
She may.
Thank you, ma'am. Be careful, just step. Free to go. Okay? You're welcome to remain in the court with you. They call your next witness.
Tim Russell.
Sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give here today to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're going to have to see it.
Thank you.
Judge, would it be okay if we took a short break? Thank you.
Met with Supervisor Sergeant Richardson, and we kind of get a synopsis of what he's aware of, and then he assigns us tasks, jobs to do during the crime scene. So in this particular case, he had already assigned a photographer, and I was a videographer.
All right. Do you all video every crime scene that you go to?
Now, we do not video them at all.
Okay.
We have surveying equipment that does it for us now. Technology's improved. But back then, we did both. We map it and video.
Okay. And so is the first thing you did there videoing?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm going to show you that video in just a little bit, but I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I think you said photos were also taken at the scene. Is that correct? Okay. And were you there when those photos were taken?
Yes, most of them, yes.
Okay. Judge, if I may approach. Detective Russell, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33 for identification purposes.
Okay.
Can you take a look at those, please? Detective Russell, now that you've had time to look over those photos, do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and collectively, what are all of these photographs of?
Those are the photos taken at the crime scene on Woodhill in the parking lot of Austin City.
On June 21st, 2014?
Correct.
And are these a fair and accurate representation of what you saw that night?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start by showing you Commonwealth Exhibit 25. And Judge, at this time, I move to introduce Commonwealth Exhibit 25 through 33.
Almost 25 to 30 years.
Thank you. And Detective Russell, can you identify this for us, please?
On the background is the Austin City storefront. This is a picture in the parking space. There is blood there and medical debris, a one-way breather, medical debris, and then the cover. This is the medical one-way breather case.
What is that?
Just a case that when you put it over your mouth, You can blow through a tube. Air only comes in, it doesn't come back. It's a one-way resuscitation device.
Okay.
Equipment.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 26.
The last picture was standing back near the white pickup truck shooting towards us. This is just shooting from the other side of the parking space back towards the pickup truck of that parking space.
Commonwealth Exhibit 27.
On the far right, up here is New Circle Road. This is the back, kind of like ramp or hill that goes down behind the Woodhill Plaza. This is, as far as north-south, this is the south part. Austin City would be up around the corner and we're at.
Commonwealth Exhibit.
You can see a little bit of the curving over here on the side. It went down the ramp and back up. Our scene is obviously over there, and Austin City is in the background.
And does the parking lot, what kind of shape does this structure form?
Kind of like an L shape, I would say.
Commonwealth Exhibit 29.
And this is the parking space with the one-way breather and the medical debris. And it's just shooting, I guess from the northern side of it, shooting back towards the back of the building. Woodhill.
Commonwealth Exhibit 30.
Now we're in the parking lot shooting towards the south end, just the storefront, oops, I'm sorry. Austin City is down on this side, and this is our kind of crime scene. There's a restaurants, and it moves towards the end of the ramp. It goes behind the parking area. Just like an overall shot, trying to establish where you're at in the parking lot.
Are you able to read that?
Well, this is
Or at least part of it?
it's Marlena's, Tiana's.
Okay. Thank you. Commonwealth Exhibit 31.
And this is, of course, the end of the building. You go down the ramp, New Circle's in the background. There's a cone there that the patrol officers put there to identify evidence. And our parking spot is over on the other side of this vehicle that we had previously shown.
Okay. And I've jumped ahead a little bit, but let me ask, because we're looking at photographs. As you're photographing the scene, are you doing anything else as far as evidence collection is concerned?
Well, if you're looking for evidence, well, I mean, when you're doing the photography or videography, you don't want to step out of anything. But you're also trying to create a storyline. Like overall, you try to document the area so people who are not familiar can get a mind of what it is. We get within close-up photos through the crime scene. It's kind of like a standard for us in major crimes.
And in this particular case, were you aware of how many people had been shot in this scene?
Yes, we were told 2 or so.
Okay. Because of that, were you looking for anything in particular?
Well, shell casings and bullets.
Okay. And so how many shell casings or bullets were you looking for?
We're looking for 2.
All right. Were you able to find any?
Yes, we found 1.
Okay, one weapon.
1 shell casing, 1 fired shell casing.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 32. And what is this?
That's the fired shell casing that was located where the orange cone is at.
Okay. And whenever you located that, and that shell casing is there, do you all do anything? Do you take the cones out? Do you put something else down?
Actually, when we come to a crime scene, we always photo and video it as is when we're there, where there's cones out there, and then we go back and video and photo again with the numbers in it. We identify the evidence, place numbers by it, try to create a flow that you're not jumping back and forth, confusing people.
Okay, and I'm gonna show you Commonwealth's Exhibit 33. And what is it?
That's the placard vial number 1, which is placed next to the shell casing that was in the previous photo.
Okay, so the shell casing was item number 1.
Correct.
Now, in a case like this, you said you were looking for 2 shell casings, but you only found 1.
Correct.
In your experience, is that unusual?
No.
Can you tell us about why?
Well, there's a lot of different factors. One, we don't know how I'm not there, so I don't know how the gun functioned. Is it a revolver? Is it semi-automatic? Did the slide not go back and capture the fired shell casing?
Can you elaborate on that for a little bit?
Uh,
The slide not go back and capture the shell casing?
Well, when the explosion happens in a semi-automatic, it's supposed to push the slide back, which grabs the shell casing and it checks it out, and it's supposed to bring another live one in. But not always does that, and every gun, sometimes it malfunctions.
Okay, so if it malfunctioned, will the shell casing be ejected?
No, it won't eject it, it can stay in, or it can what's called stovepipe, where it pinches it in the port and holds the shell casing.
Okay, and so you wouldn't find the shell casing here in that scenario?
Correct.
Okay, right. Any other reason you may not find the shell casing?
Well, we've had where patrol officers are reviewing it, the hospital rolled up and the shell casing is stuck in the tire tread of an ambulance or a patrol officer who's at the scene. There's different scenarios that can happen, but it can happen.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 34. Can you take a look at this, please?
It's one fired shell casing. The brand is a Winchester. It's a .45 caliber, and it was located in the parking lot at 2350 Woodhill, the last parking row west, second parking space south on the west road.
And is this the same shell casing that you located in the parking lot?
Correct.
Okay. Would you mind to open that item for us, please?
This is our container that we put shell casings in. It's containing the Winchester .45 fired shell casing.
Thank you. That's the same one that you located in the parking lot?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, after you collected the shell casing, did you leave the scene immediately?
No, the shell casing was collected at 8:28.
Okay. And is that booked back into property and evidence at the police department?
Correct, yeah, it's put on our mobile crime lab. Any evidence we collect put on our truck until we leave, and then I transport the evidence back to our office and put it in a locker.
Okay. Now tell us, after leaving the parking lot, did you go to the coroner's office?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us about the items that were retrieved from the coroner's office?
When I got to the coroner's office, the victim's hands were bagged, had brown paper bags on it. So usually the hospital does that. But I collected the bag on the right and left hands, and then I swabbed the back of the right hand, the back of the left hand, and then swabbed the left and right hand fingernails.
Okay. And what did you do with those?
I put them in bags and took them over to the forensic services office and put them in a locker.
Is this the same day?
Yes,
All right. And were any other items obtained from the coroner's office?
some clothing. There's a black t-shirt, gray boxers, 2 white socks, a pair of blue jeans, a brown belt, were bagged by the coroner's office.
Okay, and were those also taken to the property and evidence department, over at the
Yes.
police department? Okay. Did you go anywhere else that day in relation to this case?
I attended the autopsy of the victim.
Okay. And do you do that for evidence retrieval purposes?
And for photo documentation. I mean, we don't have to go. A lot of agencies don't send detectives or people up there to attend the autopsies, but we do. We take photos. The medical examiner takes photos. I receive the evidence from the medical examiner.
Did you take photos in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what kind of items did you receive from the medical examiner?
Pulled head hair, DNA card, sample card, and a jacketed projectile, a bullet.
And were those retrieved from the victim in this case?
Correct.
All right. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because I think that the video that you took that day is actually working.
Power off.
Okay. And have you reviewed this video in preparation for trial?
Yes,
Okay. And you can verify that this is the video that you took on this evening at Austin City Saloon,
yes,
June 21st, 2014?
yes.
Okay. We're going to play it.
And as I told you earlier, there's what we call an establishing shot. It's Austin City Saloon. We're in the back of the parking lot. Each time you hit pause, there's a break, creates a new file. But just trying to establish, this is the wall on the south end. There's the ramp end around the corner. There's our crime scene tape. There's a red pickup truck. White pickup truck. There's a Woodhill sign that's facing over on New Circle. When you drive up New Circle, you can see. Just trying to get a location so people can be familiar with it. In the background is the Thornton's gas station. It's on the corner of Woodhill, New Circle. Starting with the sign, Thornton's in the back. Crime scene tape, the white pickup truck, the white vehicle, and the parking spot is behind the white vehicle that we photographed out with medical debris. Austin City in the background. There's our mobile crime lab in the background. It's the white truck. You can't see it, the orange cone in the center of the shot. And then the corner of the ramp and New Circle Road. Back to the Woodhill sign. We're on the Thornton side of the crime scene. There's a white pickup truck. Red truck. The orange column, it's it. The parking spots with all the medical, debris, blood. suspected blood. The cover to the medical one-way breather case. Wrapper, one-way breather, medical. There's a pile of gloves, there's suspected. That's the one-way breather. Those are gloves by the fire department. And suspected blood. In the background is the orange cone. I shoot some license plates of the vehicles in the parking lot.
Now, when you're shooting this video, do you necessarily know what's pertinent to this investigation?
We've done a walkthroughs, so we've, know a little bit. I mean, obviously we don't know everything because we weren't there during the crime, but yeah, we have things we want to document. We always want to document the vehicles in the crime scene. But you're also looking for evidence. That was the cone with the shell casing under it. The white pickup truck with the tag was on the last ones next to it, just did the other vehicles. There's a temporary tag, and I'll attempt to shoot the information on it. Burton, Chevy Equinox, and the VIN number. And in the rear passenger tire, there's a beer bottle that we collected. After you remove the cone, the shell casing that was underneath the cone. At this point, the cone was removed and item number 1 was placed. is our evidence placard with a scale and the shell casing. Just coming from different angles to the same thing, giving you kind of a insight of maybe distance. That should be it.
Okay, and that's the end of the video?
Correct.
Okay. Now, it's dark in that video. What time did you all film that? What time did you film that?
So there, 4:50, the video started.
Okay. And this was June 21st?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
As a technician at Forensic Services, do you fingerprint things?
Yes.
Okay. Have you had special training on fingerprinting? Have you gone through classes about fingerprinting and things like that?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Can you tell the jury a little bit about how fingerprints work, how fingerprints are left behind?
Well, I mean, your fingerprints are just basically your sweat, which is 90% water, and there's salt and fat in your sweat, which takes up to 2%. When you touch something, your lines have ridges, your fingers have ridges on them, and along those are sweat glands. And we deposit your water or sweat onto something, and then we take a dry powder and go behind it. Like a toner in a copy machine, or a graphite type thing, which sticks to the water left behind, and then we take a card, a white card, because we get black powder, and we take tape and pick the powder up, the fingerprint off, and put it on the white card.
Okay.
To get the print.
And in your experience, is there a bit of a misconception about how easy it is to get fingerprints off of items?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of different factors. One, the texture of the surface. When things like this wood grain, when you put that powder in there, the loose powder will go into the cracks and valleys and fill it up. And a lot of times, that fingerprints won't be able to lift clearly to examine. Because what you look for is where the lines intersect or end, which makes everyone individual. And when that valley fills up with powder, you don't get the detail that you need to see where the fingerprints ridges end or intersect.
Okay.
Like I said, water absorbs, it evaporates, it's smudged, it smears.
All right. And so in your experience, about how frequently do you get fingerprints off of things that you fingerprint?
Well, it's, probably less than 1 out of 3 cases, or probably less than 1 out of 4 cases.
And are those only the situations where you're fingerprinting things that are conducive to fingerprinting?
Correct. I mean, we don't cover every crime scene. There's only 11 people in our unit, and we cover 24 hours a day. The patrol officer responds to the scene, and if he finds things for us to fingerprint, he calls us to the scene.
Okay. And the casing that we talked about that was recovered in this case, I think it's still sitting in front of you, is it there?
Correct.
Okay. Was that fingerprinted?
Yes, it was.
All right. Did you find fingerprints on that casing?
No, we did not.
And do you have an expert opinion as to why?
Well, I've got an opinion about, I've been there 20 years. We've fingerprint shell cases before. You got to understand that the shell casing is in a cylinder, a chamber of a gun. When you shoot it, it expands because of that pressure, which pushes the bullet out. A extractor grabs it and then pulls it out, which is causing friction on the shell casing, and ejecting it, which is kind of rubbing the fingerprints. Number 2, the heat from, if you ever caught a fired shell casing, it's hot. So it evaporates the moisture on the fingerprint too. So there's several factors that go along with why you can't or couldn't get a print on a fire showcase.
Okay, what about DNA on a fire shell casing?
Well, there's things that kill DNA. One is heat, one is ultraviolet light, and other is chemicals like bleach cleaners. So taking the fire shell casing, you're exposing it to the heat. So chances are pretty slim to get DNA off, depending on the heat of the fire projectile.
Okay. And then what kind of scenario is forensic services called out? Let's say to a robbery.
Well, if there's an injury to the victim in a robbery case, or something to fingerprint. If you're just walking down the street and someone robs you of your wallet and you're not injured, we don't respond to that.
Without an injury, you don't respond to that.
Correct.
Okay. So if there is a hotel room and some things are taken, no injuries, no damage, would you necessarily respond to that?
Not unless there's something to fingerprint.
Okay. And about, let me ask you about that. Would you think a mattress in a hotel room would be something that you could get a fingerprint off of?
Well, that absorbs the water, so I couldn't put my powder on. Plus, it's the textury cloth surface that is not going to hold the lines and the ridges up.
Okay. What about a backpack, like a fabric backpack?
Oh, that's cloth also. When I put my dry powder on, it's not going to stick to anything that's on the back.
Okay. What about drawers in a hotel room?
Then you're getting into the, we don't process doorknobs, door handles, cabinet handles, because they're constantly touched. And that oil, even the water evaporates, the oil is still left behind. So when I touch something and touch something, the ridges are crisscrossing, and when you powder it, it's just a big blob of powder. It doesn't show the detail because all the layers of oil, and no one ever cleans their doorknobs.
Okay. Does that have something to do with the frequency of people that would be in a space like that? Is that what you're saying?
It's the constant touching of something, so yeah.
Okay. And what about DNA for those scenarios?
Well, like a bank robbery, we used to go and swap the doors of the banks to go in there, but when we sent it off to the lab, there was so many DNA profiles, they couldn't develop a profile. So it was, I mean, we don't swab.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was like, think of how many people go into a hotel. It's 365 days of different people entering a hotel. There's DNA all over the place.
Okay. And Judge, I do need to introduce Commonwealth's Exhibit 35, which was the video that was shown. Oh, I'm sorry, is that 34?
Showcase.
Oh, yes, and I can go ahead and introduce that, that's fine. Yes. That's all the questions I have for you at this time. Thank you.
Detective Russell, you said that you arrived just prior to 4 a.m.
Correct, 357.
3:57. So we heard that this time one call came in around 1:30, so there was some amount of time before you were there.
Yeah, I was in bed. We called out to know what it is.
Okay. When you arrived, did you help to assist with looking around the scene for the collection of evidence?
When I first arrived, we did kind of a walkthrough, but later we searched along the building facings and curtains for shell casings and projectiles.
Okay. And we saw those pictures. It seems as though there was maybe different levels of police tape. It kind of looked like there was a circle of police tape around the immediate scene. And then as you say what we did, it was like other tape further out. So tape by the corner, tape up by the Thorntons.
Right, just to keep people out. If we don't block it off, news media, people will walk through it because there's no tape.
And that could contaminate the crime scene. Right?
Could, I mean, sure, I don't know what they bring into it, but you have the potential to bring something into the crime scene.
Sure. So, are you aware if there was a search of this crime scene performed before you arrived?
I am not.
Okay.
I mean, patrol does it, because they put the cones there.
Okay. So by the time you were there, was there already a cone for the showcasing that was found?
Correct,
Okay. So at some point, somebody had noticed the showcasing before you got there?
correct.
Okay. And you said when you got there, you guys did a walkthrough of the scene, and then you said beyond that, there was a search performed after that. Can you describe that?
Well, we walked along the parking lot of the front face because the bullet is shot and it goes through, they can skip across the parking lot and you can find them up against the curbs, or if it hits the building wall, it can fall back there on the walkway. So we worked our way around the building and through the parking lot to the area around to take it.
Okay. When that was being conducted, do you have any memory for how many people were involved in this search?
Sergeant Richardson, Billy Sally, and myself.
Okay, so 3. Yeah, as we saw, it was pretty dark.
Correct.
I'm sure you guys have a way around it. How do you, I mean, are we just talking like maglite flashlights, or do you guys have some special lights, or?
Well, at 9:20 in the morning, which was daylight, we searched the storefront and parking lot for projector.
Okay, so 9:20 in the morning, so now we're using the big flashlight in the sky.
Right.
It's daylight out.
Correct.
Okay. And so that search that was conducted by the 3 of you, that was conducted after the sun had come out,
Correct.
and you could see everything.
Correct.
You know, darkness wasn't a problem.
Correct.
Okay. And you said there was only the one showcasing that was found, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you guys have experience with losing showcasings to, say, tire treads before, right?
Correct.
Like you mentioned, that could happen.
Yep.
So presumably, a search would include looking in the tires nowadays, am I right?
All the vehicles that are left there, yes.
Right, the ones that are there, you take a look and make sure you don't see anything in the vehicle anywhere, either the tire tread inside or anything like that.
Correct. And we looked for bullet holes and cars that were left there too.
Okay, found none of those.
Correct.
Okay. Looked underneath the cars, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to take a look at this picture. Are those pictures still up here? Yeah. This one picture in particular I want to ask you about. Okay, well, I guess 2 of okay. So this is the picture from outside looking towards
The Thornton side, yes, Thornton side looking towards the south facing of the building.
Okay, thank you. So New Silver Road's in the back right?
Correct.
Okay. The cone, that's where the showcase is?
Correct.
Okay. But as we've heard, all the medical stuff and the suspected blood, that's on the other side of this truck to the left?
That's correct.
Okay. So there's some separation there, and I want to talk about that for a minute. Okay. So assuming not a revolver, assuming a gun that produces a projectile, when somebody holds a gun and fires it, the projectile doesn't just fall directly from the gun to the ground, right?
Correct.
Okay, can you tell the jury what happens?
Well, the explosion pushes it out the barrel and it goes in a straight line as long as it has the physics or force acted on it to travel until it will lose momentum and dive. And I don't know what you're talking about as far as
I
going
think
to a
that's the
person.
wrong word.
Pardon me?
So obviously the bullet gets shot.
Right.
What I meant to ask you about was the shell casing itself, the part that's not shot out of the gun's barrel.
Well, yeah, an extractor from the gun kind of grabs the edge of it and ejects it out the port on the top of the gun. It can go backwards, it can go forwards, it can go up, it can go right.
Okay, so that's actually what I meant to say, sorry if I used the wrong word, but that particular, that doesn't just fall directly from the gun.
No,
Okay, like you said, it can go back, forwards, up. It can cover distance too, right?
yeah, I mean, it comes out with the force of the bullet being fired, so yeah, it can go 6-8 feet
Okay.
more.
So
Depending
it
on,
can go some distance
Yes.
from the gun before it even hits the ground or anything else.
correct,
Okay. And then if it were to hit the ground, once it hits the ground, it can continue move for a little while, right, until it comes to
Right.
rest,
Right.
right? Okay. So we see this distance here, that could have been accomplished from when it was shot, that it landed there from being shot from the gun, wherever the gun was when the gun went off, right?
Yes, it's I think, I don't know the exact measurements of the parking lot space, but yes, it can hit and tumble.
Okay. But that's not the only way it could have gotten over there, right? Somebody could have kicked it before they noticed it or something like
Correct.
that. Okay. So the scene, you know, the first thing that the police and the first responders are looking to do is help victims, right?
Correct.
And so if that showcasing or anything was right up in the middle, it could have been jostled around or something could have happened to it at that point. We don't know.
Police or fire.
A police or fire.
Correct.
Right, okay. So that could have been possible, but we don't know because it's not till later that we start looking for evidence that comes down and stuff like that.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So while this is a distance away, we don't know what it was that had that open.
Like I said, it could be the extracting, or someone could have, like you said, kicked it
Okay.
and providing first aid or that.
And we saw a picture of it in the parking lot. It looks like it landed sitting straight up.
A primer, yeah, primer down.
Okay, and sometimes that happens too, right?
Yes.
That's not completely uncommon or unheard of or anything like that.
No.
Okay. That's just all I have.
Hello.
Hey.
So you indicated on direct examination that your unit will respond to both major and minor crime scenes, right?
Yes, at the request of patrol.
So whether you show up at a crime scene is not really your determination, it's the responding officer's determination.
Correct.
The detective's determination.
It's not known patrol officer.
And you can photograph, you can fingerprint, you can swab for DNA, you can take video, right?
Correct.
So all things to document the scene as it is at the time.
At a major crime scene, yes.
Okay. And at a minor crime scene, you can take photographs and video as well?
Not video, just photographs.
Okay, but something to document the scene then.
Correct.
And the Commonwealth talked to you a little bit about swabbing for DNA and checking for fingerprints. So fingerprints, finding fingerprints is more conducive on smooth, dry surfaces, right?
Correct.
So smooth metal, things like that, you would tend to have a better shot of finding fingerprints.
Correct.
And DNA, touch DNA, is almost the opposite of that, right? If a surface is rough, you're more likely to find touch DNA on that surface.
You need a friction to take the skin cell off.
Yeah, because what you're getting from the touch DNA is shedded skin cells, right?
Correct.
So the more textured a surface, the more likely you are to find those skin cells.
Correct.
You also talked about responding to robberies and what you might anticipate testing for in robberies. If a victim's personal item was touched by a suspect, that could be a possible item to test either for fingerprints or DNA, right?
Could be, depending on the item.
And what you could do in that situation is you could take a DNA swab from the victim, right? And that would be a standard, we call it standard.
Okay, I'll wait to see where you're going with it.
I'm just
Okay.
saying, you would have a way to then compare the DNA you found on the item you swabbed with the victim's DNA so that you could make sure that what you were looking at was not the victim's DNA.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Is Kentucky State Police will send stuff up there, and can take a while to get back, and sometimes they refuse stuff we send up there. So
Okay.
depending on what you're talking about, we could swab stuff and send it up there, and they send it back. They won't do it.
Okay, but
Sure.
what I was talking about in general, the theory, what you do is you can get victim's DNA from a swab. You can swab an item that a suspect may have touched that belongs to the victim, and you can compare the victim's swab to what's found on the item to exclude any of the victim's DNA that might be found.
Okay.
Is
Sure.
that right?
Yes, but in reality, if I got something, we wouldn't necessarily swab the victim right away because DNA on the item is expected to be victims, and not until we develop a suspect would we try to eliminate a victim.
Okay, and their DNA is not going to change over time, right? So you
Correct.
can go swab them at the
Yeah,
victim
I
at
could do
any
it
time.
10 years from now and be saying,
In this case, you were the individual who did the swabbing of Mr. Price's hands, right?
correct.
So in a situation, serious crime where there's maybe been an altercation, it's important to swab the victim's hand for the potential of foreign DNA, right?
Yes,
So in this case, you swabbed the back of his hand, right?
correct.
And that could have been a surface that maybe if there was a fight, he could have punched the suspect. And maybe that could have transferred skin cells or even depending on the punch, some blood cells, right?
Right, that's what we were kind of hoping, that if he was able to get a punch.
Okay, and then swabbing under fingernails is pretty standard in those situations as well, right?
Yes,
And because in cases where there's an altercation, it's possible that the victim could have scraped the skin of the suspect, and that would be under their fingernails.
could be.
So I'm assuming that Mr. Price's hands were bagged at some point?
At the hospital, and it's really, UK bags their hands because they think on shooting victims we're going to swab for a gunshot residue, which is not the case.
Okay, but the bagging of the hands can also preserve some of that, the potential for DNA either under the
It kind of
fingernails.
hurts it more because it can rub on the bag rub off.
Okay, but it can preserve under the fingernails. Other
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
not going to be touching.
I'm not saying, yeah, I mean, it helps, but yes.
So the bagging of the hands can help to prevent additional foreign DNA, maybe from hospital staff, getting onto the victim.
Correct.
I think that's all I have tonight.
Just 1 second, Judge. No redirect, Jen. We'd like for him to be on call.
Remain on call?
Yes.
Remain on call. Ready for your report?
I'm going to call Chad Karsner.
Chad Carpenter.
Until we approach Judge Wells.
Please swear or affirm this testimony you give your client will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I hope that's not okay. You may ask.
Thank you, Judge. Please tell us your name.
Chad Carter,
How are you employed?
Lexington Police Department.
How long have you been with the Lexington Police Department?
About 18 years,
Okay.
since
And
July 2000.
what is your current assignment?
I'm a Canine officer in Special Operations with the Canine Unit.
And how long have you been with the Canine Unit?
Since August of '05, so about 13 years.
About how many officers are with the Canine Unit?
Currently, right now, we have 12 total.
And tell us what your unit does.
We have dogs that are trained and certified for service and police work, tracking, criminal apprehension, narcotics detection, bomb detection, building searches, things like that.
Okay. And I want to go through each of those in turn.
Okay.
Tell us what tracking is. when you say they're trained in tracking? What does that mean?
Essentially, tracking is tracking human odor instead of animal odor. Anything from a suspect who has committed a crime to someone who is missing, lost, or endangered, to track anyone like that.
Okay, and you told us that they track human odor.
Correct.
Are the dogs trained to track a specific person?
No, ma'am.
And tell us how that works.
The dogs are trained to track any human odor. They're called hot scent tracking dogs is what they are. And in most circumstances, we don't have an item to give them on scene or in an area where someone might have been wearing clothing to make them a discretional tracker. But once they establish a human odor track, they will stay on that same track, no matter if tracks cross over that or not, until that specific track is exhausted. In certain circumstances, certain other agencies in America employ what's called a scent discretion dog. Say if you worked at the Federal Bureau of Prisons, they have, some of those agencies have scent discretion dogs where, as if someone were gone missing or the count came up and they had someone escape from prison, they would have an article of clothing that that individual had worn throughout that time. They would then present that to the dog, and the dog would systematically find that specific odor in an area.
Okay, and so there are dogs that can do that.
Correct.
But it would require some article of clothing.
Correct, and we're not that fortunate with police work. There aren't very many times. It does happen occasionally, but if we had scent discretion dogs, complete discretion dogs, then we would only be able to track anybody if they had dropped something at the scene of a crime.
And in your 18 years, do the suspects frequently leave their clothing at the scene of the crime?
It does happen, but not often.
Okay, and that's what you would need to track to that specific person?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, and so our dogs don't do that for
No,
that
ma'am.
reason. All right, and tell us, were you with the Canine unit in June of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was your dog?
Lux, Canine Lux.
And actually, I'm jumping ahead. I didn't go through the others. You told us that they're also trained to do building searches.
Correct.
What's that?
Essentially the same thing except inside a building. They're looking for the hottest, freshest human odor inside an enclosed area. If it were 3 a.m. and they have an alarm drop at one of the local schools and they come up there and there's a point of entry, glass has been broken or someone has broken in there, myself and another canine officer will come in with my dog or that officer's dog will go in and will allow the dog to systematically search through the building to try to find where the human odor is coming from, if the person's still inside.
And you said the hottest. What does that mean?
Correct. The freshest possible odor that they can get to at that point. That would be the hottest.
The last person that had been
Correct,
there.
yes.
Okay. And criminal apprehension, what is that? What are the dogs trained to do in terms of that?
Essentially, criminal apprehension is if we're in a situation that warrants utilization of a police dog to apprehend somebody, if we get to that level of force, then the dogs are trained to bite and hold the suspect, which is rare actually, a lot rarer than what you would see on television, so to speak.
In terms of them locating somebody?
Yes, in most of the circumstances in my 13 years, I've located someone, they've surrendered. I've had to bite very few people with a police dog for anything really.
Okay.
A lot of times, obviously when that does happen, it's not a normal call. It's usually a very, like a shooting has happened, there's been a robbery of some type, instances like that.
Okay. But that's limited to when you actually find somebody on that track.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said they're also trained in narcotics detection. Tell us
Correct,
about that.
they are. So basically, they are trained to respond to one of the major illegal narcotic odors: marijuana, heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, and ecstasy. They will hit certain types of ecstasy because certain types of that drug contain MDMA, which is a derivative component of methamphetamine. There are types of ecstasy that they won't hit. So essentially what they're alerting to, or what they're responding to inside the ecstasy, or certain types of it, is the methamphetamine that's included in that. But they're basically trained on those 4 odors.
Okay, and so Lux could do that as well as the human odor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you said you were working with Lux in June of 2014.
That's correct.
How long had Lux been a police dog at that point?
I picked him up in January of 11. So I guess almost 4 years, close to it anyway.
Okay, and does Lux become certified when he starts with the police department?
No, I have to certify him.
Okay, tell us how that works.
So when a handler gets a new dog, we have a head trainer, and that individual comes in with us and begins a routine, a set routine of training regimen with the dog to get them to a certain point where they're ready for police work on the street, and they're also ready for certifications. We certify through a third-party certifying body called the United States Police Canine Association. And what that is it's an organization that's here in America. There are several that are out there. There's one called NAPAWADA, that's North American Working Police Dog Association, and other areas that certify dogs for different purposes. Here at our agency, we go through the USPCA because we have for quite some time. When we want to certify a dog, it usually happens throughout the year. This year it's going to be a couple of times. Sometimes it happens once a year, but at any rate, at a minimum of once a year, we'll certify the dogs.
Okay, so they do that initial certification, and then
Yes.
once a year they get recertified?
That's correct,
Okay,
yes.
and you and Lux went through that process
We did. I believe it was June or July that same year.
when you got him?
Yes, ma'am. It takes us about 16 to 20 weeks to get a dog completely finished from start to finish.
Okay.
So,
Okay, and I want to go back to June 15th of 2014 specifically.
Okay.
Were you and Lux asked to respond to the Quality Inn Hotel on that date?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, and tell us what time you went to the Quality Inn?
It says I arrived at 3:21.
Okay, and what did you do when you got there?
For this particular instance, pulled in the parking lot, got out of my vehicle and contacted one of the officers that was already there speaking with the victim. I believe in this case it was a robbery.
Okay, and so did they kind of give you an account of what the victims had told them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what do you do from there?
From there, depending on the circumstances and the issues that are at hand, I decided whether or not we're going to track for this individual. In this case, we decided to track for him. So I went up to the vehicle, retrieved my police dog, put him in a tracking harness, which is essentially it's more like a special collar. It doesn't go around the neck, it goes around the dog's actual body. There's a D-ring on top of it, and you can clip a long leash to it, and it keeps the dog's nose down, keeps them in tracking mode. It's something kind of like, lets the dog know that that's kind of what we're looking for, is we're looking for a track here. It keeps me from pulling on his neck and pulling his head up inadvertently off the ground when he's looking for a track.
Okay.
So after that, I'll allow him to go, I'll do what's called breaking the dog, which is I'll let him go use the restroom, keep his mind about himself, get him prepared to work, because I don't want him halfway through this thing peeing on everything as we go.
Sure.
So,
Okay, and what do you do so you let him break first, and
Yes.
then what do you do when you want to start a track?
this particular dog, I would put him in a down position, which would mean belly to the ground, all four paws down, and I'd wait just a second and let him get his nose about himself. Sometimes if you wait there just for a few seconds, it doesn't take very long to see a dog's nose kind of waft up and go into a certain area. If he starts doing that, I'll give him his command and let him have his nose. If not, I'll give him a command and he'll start looking on the ground for human odor.
And how do you know when Lux is on a track?
There are different mannerisms that dogs exhibit when they are tracking. This is something that that God puts in animals. Animals they track automatically. We just take the animal odor out and put human odor in when we train. And so when he was tracking human odor, I could tell because Lux's tail was set a certain way. It was high and arched and flipped to the left a little bit. His shoulders were hunched over. His nose is down to the ground. I can hear him wafting air into his nose, sniffing and snorting air into his nose. He's pulling on the ground, with his feet digging into the track. Human tracks, the dogs pull very hard, and Lux was a big dog, so a lot of times when I was tracking human odor, I could tell because I had to lean back with him
Okay.
because He was strong.
Okay, so that's how you would know Lux was on a truck?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that you got him out. Did you do these things in this case when you responded to the Quality Inn?
Yes,
Okay, and did Lux find a trap in the Quality Inn?
he did.
Okay, and I want to show you what's been marked as Commonwealth Exhibit 36. And tell us if you recognize this area.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, you can scoot your chair over and talk us through and tell us what we're looking at.
So this is the back of the hotel at Newtown and Newtown Court. This is I believe it's the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Building. I'm assuming that is the same location, but I'm not sure what this building is called. And there's a separate parking lot right here that backs up to the backside of the Legacy Trail. It's actually off the picture here into another road that goes over beside Lex Marker across New Circle.
Okay, and you said that you came and started at the Quality Inn.
Yes, ma'am. I pulled in the parking lot through this drive right here and went to the direct right. I think that's a Shell mark right there, I believe. I'm not sure what this building right here is. When I went through, I turned to the right and parked, and I contacted the officers in this area right here, I believe.
Okay, so tell us where you, and that's where you learned what had happened. Tell
Yes,
us where
ma'am.
you started Lux.
I don't remember exactly where I started. I don't remember which side of the building we went around, but the individuals in this incident, according to the victims, had run behind the hotel. So I'm not sure which side I went around, but I ended up in the back part of the lot on this side right here.
Okay, so Lux did go behind the hotel.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, where did you all go from there?
I remember tracking through this parking lot right here.
Is that a wood line? What do we see there?
Well, there's a wood line that goes around the hotel this here that backs up to the, I believe this is the off-ramp, New Circle to Newtown. So
Okay,
there's a wood line here, there's a large wood line that surrounds this area right here, and then there's a very large wood line all the way back in here. It's extremely large.
okay, and so you told us that Lux went around
He
the
went-
building, went through that wood line?
We went through this area right here, through this
Okay.
little patch of woods, straight across this parking lot. And we ended up over in here, but I can't remember which side of the building we went around.
Okay, but you ended up in the back parking lot for the transportation?
Correct.
building.
And then
Okay.
we went, I remember crossing the sidewalk here and this drive. And then we went directly over here to the top of the Legacy Trail, where that road meets it. There's a small bridge up there that goes over New Circle. And if you're on the Legacy Trail and you're traveling that way, you're going to be going over top of New Circle to get to the other side.
Okay, and is that where Lux ended?
That is where he ended that night.
And how do you know that he's ended his track?
His Lux was very particular in how he ended a track. I knew if we weren't on odor anymore, we'd stop tracking. He would simply stop tracking, lift his head. The mannerisms would change. His tail would drop down. He would stop actively looking for odor on the ground. He began doing normal dog things.
Okay.
So,
And so that's what he did in that corner that you pointed out to us?
yes, ma'am. Coming back, whenever I end a track, I never want to just leave it at end of track. So even coming back, I'll keep him hooked up on a harness, or at least keep him, reeled in far enough with that leash to where if he establishes something else going a different way, I can check all the other areas. So once the track ends, I come back and make sure that I kind of go back the way I came and I look through these areas, the surrounding areas. So it does take some time.
Okay.
It's more than just a track and then poof, we're done here. I may stay out with him for a period of time after we've already cleared the perimeter. And then if I get something else, I'll advise dispatch and we can make.
But in this case, you didn't find anything?
No, ma'am.
Right, okay,
No.
and Lux did not find anything?
No, ma'am, that's correct.
Do you know who Lux was tracking?
I have no idea.
Okay. And you said that you don't know who Lux is tracking.
That's
You told us it was a heat thing. Do you always know if the suspect's the last person in an area?
No, it would be very, I would like to know that. That would be nice. That's not something that I can say for sure, for certain or not. There have been circumstances where we've come back from a call and realized we've been tracking police. Because the police have saturated an area where somebody has just ran from, or they say that, or we have a victim that's given us one direction and we've gone the opposite. Because sometimes information gets misconstrued, or in the heat of the moment, somebody forgets they shouldn't be walking in a certain area. We try to curb that as much as possible. We try to get on the radio and tell everybody, don't, stay in your cars, or don't walk within the perimeter. If you've lost this person or something, please stop what you're doing. Don't go any further. So that way we have a fresher point to start from.
Okay.
And we don't have all that other contamination, but cross-contamination there's a lot.
So that's a problem.
It is, yes.
Okay. And were you also asked to respond to Austin City Saloon on June 21st of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
And tell us were you dispatched to that scene?
It says here this was self-initiated.
And what does that mean then?
That would mean that I heard the call go out on the radio and I just went before I was asked to go.
Why is that?
Well, it was a shooting, and special operations Canine units, we go to most of the high priority calls. In a lot of cases, we want to be able to be utilized as fast as possible. So instead of me staying there waiting for them to call for me, I'm going to go ahead and go and start that way in case they do need me, because I'd rather be there and not be needed than not be there and be needed fast.
What time did you get to Austin City?
It says 1:34 a.m.
And what did you see when you got there?
Officers had two individuals that had been shot. There was fire department personnel and officers that were there attempting to revive the male victim. There was a female individual that had been shot.
So the victims were still on scene and being tended to when you
Correct,
arrived?
that's
Okay.
correct, yes ma'am.
And did you tell us what you do from there?
From there, I pulled one of the street officers aside and asked them if they knew anything about where the individual, the suspect had gone to, if the suspect was in a car, on foot, what have you. I was told that at that point in time that the individual was on foot, or the suspect was on foot, and that it was actually two individuals, I think. And she described it, I guess the victim had described it to officers as a suspect had her purse and was walking away from the area around behind the backside of the building.
Okay. And I want to show you what I am marking as Commonwealth Exhibit 37. Your Honor, could I have the witness come down from the scene? Got a big one of this. Help orient, does this look familiar to you?
It does, yes ma'am.
Okay, and help orient the jury to what we're looking at here.
This is the inner loop, new circle, this is outer loop. This is Woodhill Drive, Codell East, Codell. Austin City Saloon. This is Insta Signs, this is a liquor store. I'm not sure what this building is right here, but this is the Speedway. And
Okay, but this is Austin City.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the instant signs.
Correct.
That's facing a new circle.
correct.
Okay, and so tell us, you and Lux responded to this scene.
We did.
Tell us where you went. You got some information. And
I
where
did.
did you go from there?
So I was parked roughly about right here in the parking lot, so to speak. The individuals that had been victimized in the robbery were in this general area right here, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. I spoke with an officer, came back to the car, gathered details of the incident, came back to the car. I got Canine Lux out and I dropped him in this area right here just before I allowed him to brake right here in this area. There were some bushes there at the time. And then I put him in a down position right here at this corner.
So that's where you started him on the track?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and was Lux able to find the track?
He did establish a short track, yes.
Okay, and tell us where Lux went.
He went straight down the side of the drive right here, up against the building a little bit, and then down into the middle portion where this truck in this picture is right here, straight down through here, and the track actually ended right about here.
Okay, and what's there? What are we seeing?
I'm not sure what's there now. At the time, there was some small playground equipment, like you would see it like a preschool maybe, seesaw or slide, a small jungle gym no higher than maybe 6 feet high.
But it's the back of this building.
It is the back of this, yes ma'am, it's the back of this building.
And so Lux ended his track behind this building?
Yes ma'am, right about in this area right here.
Okay, and what did you do after he ended his track?
I kept, when he ended the track, I downed him again over in this area, and I checked back and forth to see if he could reestablish any more human odor in this general area.
What does that mean? You said you downed him again?
I attempted to establish another track at that point, and because I thought that, you know, if we'd ended here, there could be a chance that he just lost it and maybe I missed a cut somewhere.
Okay.
So, and by missing a cut, I mean maybe I missed a left or a right turn or an indication that someone had turned left or right by my dog. So I ran him up further all the way to the front, to the sides of this building, to the front of Codell Drive. And then I took him back this way and ran him back through and checked these outer areas right here to make sure I hadn't missed a turn anywhere.
And was Lux able to reestablish a track anywhere?
No, ma'am. He got into some odor back here, but it was from, there's like a porch here, and there were a lot of people outside the back of Austin City.
Okay. But in the areas you checked, that you let us through, you all were not able to reestablish
No,
a
ma'am.
track?
No, ma'am. Not like that. Not like a normal track. No, ma'am.
Okay, not like he had a track?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And is this a fair and accurate depiction of what that area looks like?
It appears to be, yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would move to introduce that into evidence as Commonwealth Exhibit 37 and the previous photo as Commonwealth Exhibit 36. I think those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Man, officer.
Hi, how are you?
How long did you say you've been with the Canine unit?
Since August of '05.
And when you are beginning a track, you and the other officers on scene take steps to make that track as successful as possible, right?
We try to. Yes, ma'am.
So you have other officers setting up a perimeter so no one walks in and out, right?
That's the theory, yes.
And you have you're saying that you may use the radio to advise officers to stay in their car.
I could, yes.
Okay. And again, that's because a dog is looking for the freshest scent.
Correct.
And in order for that to be meaningful, you want that scent to be the suspect's scent.
That's the goal, yes, ma'am. Now, there are certain instances where the officers can get out of their cars. I don't know if this was or wasn't one of those things, obviously. In certain circumstances, if it is tactical in nature and the officers are seated in their cars, those lights can get very bright and it's hard to see outside those windows at night because the windows in the car are clear and the lights are so bright. In certain instances, when the officers get out of their cars, we will allow that to happen at numerous occasions, except we don't want them walking into the perimeter. We want them staying outside the perimeter they've established.
And you spoke about the track that you established at the Quality Inn Hotel on June 15th.
Yes, ma'am.
You arrived at that hotel at 3:26 in the morning?
I have 321, but I haven't seen, I don't have the dispatch records with me, so.
Okay, so it may have been 3:20, it was 3:21 by your record?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so other than the officers who were on scene and the victims, there weren't a lot of people around?
I don't really remember how many people there were there.
Okay. to your recollection, did you have to have people get out of the way or anything like that, or was it mostly just people who were involved in the investigation?
It was just people that were involved in the investigation.
And if I could approach Your Honor?
Okay.
Officer, I've just handed you a copy, another copy of that photograph that the Commonwealth showed you, right? Okay, I'm handing you a pen right here
Okay.
for, in a moment. So you stated that, that you and Lux tracked from the hotel through a wooded area and through a parking lot, right?
Yes, ma'am.
To your recollection, were there people in the wooded area?
No, ma'am.
Were there people in the parking lot?
No, ma'am. Just me and another canine officer.
Okay. And as best as you could, would you mind drawing on that map there, the trail that you and Lux took?
I can try to. This was some time ago, and I've done hundreds of these, so it's going to be. I remember. I don't know which side of the building we went around, obviously, but I remember being right here in this area, right here. I remember tracking down through this wood line, the short wood line right here, and through the parking lot. I don't remember which side of this building we went around, but I remember ending up on the opposite side of the building and going across this sidewalk right here in this drive. And then I remember going all the way up. There's a small hill right there that goes to the top of Legacy Trail where it meets New Circle Road right there. And I'm not sure what, maybe Developmental Drive? Is that, I guess that's the name of the road up there, I think.
Yeah, if I said it was Developmental Drive, would that sound correct to you?
It would, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you scoot that picture a little further over, is that the... Okay. I wasn't sure if that bridge you were talking about was on there somewhere.
No, ma'am, it's actually not on there.
Okay. So did you and Lux actually cross Developmental Drive?
To the best of my knowledge, what I can remember, we did not. Crossing Developmental Drive would have put us, I'm trying to think of how to lay out the overhead of what that looks like. I don't remember crossing Developmental Drive.
Is the IBM or conduit building on the other side of Developmental Drive?
I'm not sure. Lexmark is across New Circle, I think. It may be the IBM building. I'm not sure if that's one and the same now or when it was in 2014, so.
And as you and Lux were following this path, were there cars parked in the parking lot?
Yes, ma'am.
You relayed this track to dispatch, right?
As much as we could. It's usually the descriptions we give and the direction we're headed are generalized. It's hard for me to give a description footstep for footstep when dispatch checks me about which way we're going. So I would have said something to the effect of we're headed toward the Department of Transportation because that would have been something that I could see and read on a building. It's very difficult for responding units or units on a perimeter to figure out where we are. If I say we're beside these bushes right here behind the hotel, that's really not specific enough. Or we're in the wood line, that wood line's huge. So I want to be more specific about the direction I've headed and give them an actual point to focus on.
You also memorialize your work in a report.
I'm sorry?
You write a report?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
correct.
who is that report provided to?
This is a department record that we do every time we deploy a dog for service.
Okay. So that's available to the detective who ends up getting the case?
It can be, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did anyone ever contact you about the trace that you did this night back in 2014?
No, ma'am.
That's all I have.
So, I want to ask you, just a little bit, and I think it's important at this point that we just kind of take a look at this part of the map that nobody can see.
Okay.
So I pulled it up on the computer. If you give me a minute, I'll try and plug it up so that
Sure.
we can at least throw it up there.
Yes, sir.
So this is a little bit more extended view.
Yes, sir.
Let's see if I can,
Yeah, can you zoom that in and all, please?
that's what I was getting ready to
Yeah.
do.
Okay, there we go.
How's that?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, so here we have that triangle building again. That's the, you said the Kentucky Department of Highway Department.
Correct.
Okay, so if you could just continue with your explanation now that we have the map.
So where the dog went over the sidewalk and the drive right there to the large parking lot, we kept going through that grassy area. There's another little, looks like a small walking path that leads up to the Legacy Trail, and I guess that is Developmental Drive. We went up there to the top. See where the corner of the Legacy Trail meets Developmental Drive on the other side of that small wood line?
So you mean, if I can get up here, you mean around here?
I mean, right, just back from there. Yes, sir. Right, no, right in there.
Okay.
We went up that hill and to the top of Legacy Trail right there, and then that's where it had ended.
Right about here.
Keep going down a little bit. Right there.
Right around here?
Yes, sir, right about there.
Okay. So down here is where we see the Legacy Trail come across New Circle, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so it sounded like on direct that it had ended on this bridge here, but it actually ended up so.
It ended back some, yes. I never crossed over New Circle.
Okay.
To the best of my memory, I don't remember crossing over New Circle.
That Developmental Drive, that along with the Legacy Trail goes over New Circle right there?
I would think so. I'm not sure what the Developmental Drive does. I think the Legacy Trail does.
Right, okay. Do you know that road would be primarily like on Lexmark?
I have no idea.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so we went through both these parking lots, or at least past them. It sounds like it perhaps didn't go through this second parking lot, but maybe just passed it on the north side of it.
Correct.
Okay, but this first one, it sounded like it might have gone through the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it goes through there, around this building, one way or the other, comes down through here and ends around the Legacy Trail, right there where you said.
Correct.
Okay. And that's right up next to, this over here, all these parking lots, that's more Lexmark property?
I guess. I'm not, if you can pan out, I can tell you exactly where they are. I'm not sure what those lots are attached to or.
Okay. So I'm gonna grab it around where you said it ended, just to give a look here. So it looks like Developmental Drive does go over the New Circle there.
Yes, sir.
And
And
that
so-
other stuff is that big building over there.
Ye-
That's-
Yes, sir. It would seem that way.
Okay, so it's this conduit now. Okay. That's all I have.
I just want to clarify something. You told us about at Austin City, when Lux tracked around kind of by instant signs and then around the building.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a cut through there?
There was a cut through there at that time. I
Okay.
don't know if it's still there now, but there was.
Okay, and tell us where Lux tracked in relation to the cut through.
It's he went past it,
Okay.
stayed on the pavement past the cut through over there.
That's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Just one on that cut through you're talking about, that was in back behind instant signs?
Yes, or it's, so if you go around the building where instant signs is, and
I can make it easier for us.
perfect, yeah,
How about that?
thank you, it's good.
Yeah.
That cut through was right about in this general area right here. That's actually a hill that goes down. At the time, these woods were not cleared out like it is in this picture.
Yeah.
It goes down, there was a chain link fence in here somewhere, I do remember that. And there was, this is like some type of spillway. I remember water, and there's a drainage pipe or something down here that takes runoff from the Circle Road in this area. But that cut through was directly right in this area right here.
Okay. And so from that cut through, a person would be able to get out into those apartment buildings or perhaps down Richmond Road or
Yes, sir.
any number of places?
Yes, sir.
Okey-doke. That's all I have, Judge.
Officer, as it relates to the Austin City track,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't it the case that there were several officers there when you arrived?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you aware some of those officers had already gone behind the Instacart building at that time?
No, ma'am. They did not tell me that anybody had, the only thing that I was relayed was that the suspects had ran that way. I had no reason to believe at that point that officers had been that way too, as of then.
If officers had been that way, it'd be possible that that's the track we're talking about.
That's very possible, yes.
Your Honor, I have no additional questions. I would like to move defense exhibit forward.
And I just have a couple of additional questions for Officer Parsner. When you got to this scene, the other officers were working on the victims, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
At Austin City. So you did not see other officers back behind the building?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you told us about that cut through down there. Did Lux follow that cut through?
No, ma'am, he did not that night.
Okay, so he went past it.
Correct.
Okay, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Defendant's exhibit 4 is anything further? Is this what this needs to remain?
No, he did
He's
not.
free.
He's free to go.
Thanks, sir. You're-
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We can also subpoena this officer if it's with permission of the court release.
You will release him from your subpoena as well, so he is free, you're released from the defense exhibit as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was the last witness we're going to get through before lunch. Our next witness will be pretty long. So we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break at this time. Ladies and gentlemen.